Hello, hello everyone. Hi guys. Hello. Hi guys. Hello and welcome to Nuts and Bolts and Hooks of Business Storytelling. Hey guys, if you're here, I'll give you some time to settle in. Hello guys. Hello guys. Hi. How are you guys doing? This evening we're going to talk about the nuts and bolts and hooks of business storytelling. Now, as the name suggests, we are talking about the basics of business storytelling. I know you all have been on the platform. You are the user of different social media platforms. You have been interacting with your customers, influencers, and everyone around. But it sometimes helps to go down to the basics. So here I would like to share with you what I have discovered as the nuts and bolts. So just hold on for a second and let me just share my screen. In the meantime, you have any questions, please keep dropping them on the chat and I'll take up as they come by. One second. Yes. So here we are. Let me begin. Okay, so are you able to see what I'm about to share with you? Anyone? Okay, so this is what we are going to talk about, the nuts, bolts, and the hooks of business storytelling. And okay, begin with why stories and why storytelling? Well, the cliched answer is the stories connect, and we have been telling stories from the Stone Age, or maybe before that. But then, why do we tell stories in business? Well, when you tell stories in business, you are able to build a connect. When I say storytelling in business, I'm not talking about once upon a time things used to be like this, and and then we end with happily ever after. When we say business storytelling, we are talking about structured narrative. How do I structure my narrative? Why should I do it? And how should we do it? Let's look at some of these words. What does come to your mind when you look at these words? Retention, satisfaction, connect, return, attention, impact, engagement. Don't we want our clients, our influencers, our customers, our network to have this kind of a relationship with us? Don't we want to connect and retain our customer? Don't we want to satisfy them? Don't we want them to keep returning to us? Now, if you want to do all this and more, what we need to do is to build an engagement with them, and the engagement comes from the way we talk to them. And a structured narrative comes handy for it. That's the essence of business storytelling, right? And let's look at why storytelling. Of course, it's a need of the hour because we need to connect, and connecting means telling something that your customer needs to and wants to hear. It's not about what I want to say, it's not about what your product stands for, it's what your customer need to know at that point in time in the context that he or she exists in. And therefore, it's a need of the hour to understand why stories, how the stories, and when to tell the stories where. Of course, we are wired for stories. I'm sure you are tired of hearing this word, but we cannot not emphasize on it. We are wired for stories, and that's the reason you are here, because you want to understand what business storytelling is and why should we be telling those stories, and more importantly, how should we tell the stories. And business stories are something that help you connect better with your client, with your influences, and also with uh, the stakeholders within and outside the organization. Now let me stop and see if you have any questions. Yeah. Okay. You're saying you can't hear me. Can no one hear me? Is there an issue with the audio? I can see that I'm 1 second. Let me just see if there's a problem with the audio. Are you able to hear me now? Great. So as I was saying that, why do you want me to go back and come and recap what we discussed, or what I said rather? I know you couldn't hear. Would you want me to do that? Well, let me give you a very quick recap of what we were talking about is why we should be telling story and why it's important for us to do it right now. So yeah, the fact is that we are wired for stories, and of course, we have heard it many times, but we cannot not emphasize on it because it's important for us to know that stories connect and stories connect better than anything else. And we talked about why stories because they help us connect, they help us retain our clients, help us connect so that they can keep returning to us over and over again. The question is, how should we tell this story? Now, if I have to move on, I wanted to play stories, but I think we have paucity of time, so let's go ahead. What happens when we are listening to a story, we are connecting with the story because we remember certain aspects of it. Now, as storyteller, we need to figure out what is the most memorable or what is the most actionable part that we need to induce in our story. Why is my story memorable? And this is the place where we put in the message. The structure of it creates that ambience for us to pass in our message, roll in our message, and that's the message which will make my story memorable or forgettable. That's the trick that we as storytellers need to master. Why are our story memorable and how can we make our stories memorable? Because only when I am able to tell my message in the way that my consumer, my audience is able to consume, retain, engage, that's when my story is worth telling, right? Let's look at how we can do that. So these are the nuts and bolts of business storytelling. So first thing, as I said, is the structure. How do you structure the thoughts, right? So when you have to structure your thoughts, the first thing is to set the context right. So how do you set the context? We have to begin some, and there are different structures, of course there are different ways of building the structure. The first is to identify the context. Who are you speaking to, in what context that the person is? It's again not about where you are. The context can be the person actually is in the market looking for a solution in a market which is very very crowded at this moment. For example, if I take a technology sales environment, we are selling AI to an organization which has 500 multiple options. in that particular context, given where he is, and is that's a very wide canvas for us to start with. But can we, with that context, can we tell a story? Can we engage with them? I think we need to go one step further. If I scroll down the context, we see they exist in a particular geography and they have different functions that are working, and within those functions, there are certain needs. In given that context, they have invested in certain technologies. They need some supplementary technologies, or they need to improve what they have. Now, my context is getting much more compact. We are getting into a very smaller, as we keep on going, we get into a smaller and smaller trajectory. Then we core in on, okay, where does this person or this solution that I'm offering to my consumer exist? So this is where our context setting happens. We have to then format it for the clarity. When I say format, if this is the context, in this context, my consumer exists. Now, how do I then create a story that is, that is understandable, that gives them the clear picture? And then these are the storyline, this is the format that we talk about. We need it, we make it all the more easier for the person to consume. So when you're creating a story, it is not about what you are saying, it's about, again, I keep on saying it for many times, that you have to keep the consumer in mind. How do I make it easier for the person to consume? And clarity is something which is non-negotiable. So you need to have clear header, clear titles, something which begins with what is in it for me. The it's not about fancy headers, it's about what gives a clear message. What if I just read the header, I would know what it is all about, right? Rule of the thumb is, if I am just looking at headers, I'm still getting the crux of the story. I'm engaged enough to read further, right? And therefore, the way you structure your story is very important. The thought has to carry forward. Any disconnect in the thought, and you lose your audience. And if you have to give details, we cannot make details out of thin air. There has to be references that, again, your audience can connect with, uh, that are validated, that come from the very, very trusted sources. Now, currently, we are all very, very enthused about using technology, ChatGPT 4, all sorts of technology. You would get the story out. One challenge there is the quality and the validation, and the trust in the sources that you get, traceability of the source, the authenticity of the source. Now, that is a very big problem when you're doing your story, and when you're doing your structuring and structuring your thought to tell the story. References are important, details are important, and details need to be validated with the right references, either within your organization. You have a framework, you have a way of doing things, you have certain patents, whatever you have developed in house, again, that is validated by these cases that you have developed. So I cannot just make empty claims, I need to validate it. And if I need to, again, make it much more relevant to the audience at this point in time, I need to give them reference of what's happening in the market. And in that market, given the need, given what my where my customer is, I need to give them my own framework, my own uh, case studies, so that they can relate, correlate both, and see that what I'm saying, there is a validation for it. And we need to keep on refining our core message. What is it that I want to say? And again, this cycle goes back. You begin with the message, but you keep on refining that message, right? When I say message, what is it, that one thing that you want your customer to take away? Customer, stakeholder, or anyone that you're engaging with. So for for the ease of this discussion, let's call it audience. What is the one thing that you want your audience to take away, right? What is the one message? Sometimes we try to say too many things in the one story. When you try to say too many things in the one story, the chances are that your audience gets confused, right? And therefore, nothing lands on them. So it's important that this is a process of elimination. You can note down all that you want to say, right? And then you keep on ticking and okay, is this something that my audience can do without? Can I tell my story or can I pass on my message without this particular line item? If you keep on doing this art of exclusion, you'll come to the core of okay, this is it that what is essential at this point in time for me to convey to my customer, right? And this is something which I believe will make them interested in what I have to say. Again, seeing things from my audience's point of view, what they need to know at this point in time, and why they should be interested. And that is where you grab the attention. Yeah, attention comes from, you know, when I look at ourselves as audience. When you look at yourself as an audience and think of it, why is it that you would engage with, right? A piece of content, a piece of infographic, a video, or any form of content. Why would you do it? Because it is important for me at that point in time. Otherwise, my attention will be diverted in 500 different ways. So it's important that we know that what is it that that will grab my audience's attention, and this is where your message meets the channel and the right kind of the kind of assets that you have. It could be a blog, it could be a nicely done video, it could be a podcast, whatever channel and whatever medium and whatever asset you pick. What you need to do, your message has to be creatively packaged there for a person to get to see, take notice, and therefore act. And you have to keep on brainstorming and looking at questions as you keep on creating more and more content, right? Because it is not a one time effort. You keep on refining it. You keep on, so that's you've created one piece of asset, it is performed or not performed. Come back, do a brainstorming, figure out what worked, what did not work, and then you refine your message when you're doing the next round of conversation. I'll just pause here and see if there are any other questions, because I can either see this or the questions. Just let me go back and see if there's any question right now. Are there any questions? Okay, speak a bit louder. Of course, I will. I'm trying to speak as loud as I can. Any questions right now? I don't see any questions at this moment. Let me go back and continue. Okay, so in what we have is what we talk about is clarity, consistency, and you be candid. It's always important that we don't kind of look at things from a very transactional and again, candidness is something which also depends on who you're speaking to. It's not about be it saying too much or too less. It's about picking the right thing to say in the right manner without the fluff. So you have to be clear, you have to be consistent, you have to be candid, and of course, confidence. If you don't have the confidence in your message, no one else will have that. And therefore, when you match all this clarity, consistency, candidness, confidence, what you are able to then deliver is a credible, it's a very credible communication, it's a very credible story. So the credibility comes only with the C formula. If you have a better formula, please do share. I'll be interested. Now, what are the hooks? The hooks are the, sorry, one second. The hooks, uh, the hooks are different. So there are different ways. When I say hooks, there are different ways of telling the story. One is a story which is led by the leaders. The lead when you look at say a new product is launched by someone who has been in the business for a long time, someone you look up to, someone you have trust in. What works at that point in time is the face of the leader. the charisma of the leader, and therefore you are then interested to know what is it that they are building. So here what works is you want to know the hardship, you want to know the story of the origin, how does it work, and why would you really want to connect with them is you want to see that person create something. There's a wow factor. The generally, if you see, there are a lot of stories which begin from the garage. Why is it that we are so interested to know where the story originated? Because that's where you start. You have, oh wow, this started so small and it's become so big. So that creates that connect. And here, but then you cannot be just caught into the the niceties of it, or just get lost in the story of origin. Why is it that it was this product or service was created? This, and then why it was created where it was, because there were constraint, there were there was paucity of fund, or maybe there was a big idea, there was a conviction which created the product. Where it was created creates that curiosity, it creates that uh, interest in people. But again, why it happened where it happened, what was the big idea, how it got to the market. So the focus on why is important. Once your business is steady, why it's important, you talk about the how you have come to a point where you are able to tell stories about your team, because that's the time you want to acquire skills, you want to onboard teams, you want to get funding. Then that's when you talk about how you have come where you have come, and therefore why you are the good candidate for people to all get associated with you and get funding, or expand your team, and or maybe fine tune your product. Then you talk about the story, look at the scale and success, market penetration, competitive positioning. All this for come with impact. What is the impact that you are making right now, right? The impact comes when you talk about, so you talk about the story, when your leader-led story talks about why, how, and the impact that they get. The impact again is a mix of the charisma of the leader and the product as well. There's a mix of, there's a mix of it. So therefore it's important that we look at the product and service from the charisma of the leader and the impact of the product as the product matures. So these are the leader led stories that we can talk about. Now if I and then going further, we can talk about sales projections, we talk about innovation, what is the customer that is benefiting. So they are the stories. Again, it continues in different forms. Now, if I look at sorry, let me just go back, and the outcome based stories, right? Now, when I look at solution led stories, what is the solution that you have offered? Right, you, if you are going to a client and pitching your solution, they don't want to know where it began, they don't want to know who is the person behind it as much. They want to know what is the value that you have, and have you delivered it to anyone, what was it, can you quantify it, can you qualify it, and can you put it into the market concept. So you may have a product which worked well, say 5 years back. Does it work now? Right? What is the role of that product or service in the current day and time in which my customer is is right now, right? Is it solving the problem at this moment? So you have to begin your story from that part. What is the value that you have delivered, and therefore, what is it that you can qualify for the impact that you have made? And then that's how, after this, you talk about how and why. What was the secret sauce? How did you even tell that story? How did you even created that? Why should you may say that I have done, say I have delivered 10x profit to a company. How did you do it? I'm making a statement. You have case studies to talk about it. My audience is interested. They would like to know. Okay, that's great, but how did you do it? So that's when you talk about your frameworks. That's where you talk about your expertise. That's where you talk about the processes. That's where you talk about your experience, right? What are the skills? What the kind of, if it's a service, then you talk about the skills and expertise of their team. Talk about the depth and breadth of your experience, and then you demonstrate how. Bring in your SMEs to maybe do a demo, answer questions, give details of every specification that would be needed for that point in time. Again, no 70 slide presentations. What is it that your audience needs at that point in time, relative specifications. Run them through the different aspects of your product, give them a demo. And again, if you want them to consider, you talk about what have you done for other customers in the same domain, the kind of value you have delivered. Talk about who you have worked with, what kind of validations you bring in form of testimonials, awards, recognitions. So you are making a claim. You're explaining how can I then talk about, how can I then say that this claim is justified. You show it how it is, how my claim or how my product is working, and then you validate it with the customer stories that you already have, right? And then there are some more hooks for you to look at. So some more hooks are the challenger story. Sometimes people want to look at uh, people who are underdogs. They don't want. They have been doing business with big guys. Then you are an underdog. You are a new kid on the block, but you have a strong product or you have a strong service, and you have the confidence to say, okay, this is what I bring on table. So therefore, what they want to know is the impact that you can bring. So your story begins with the impact. This is what I can do for you, but I have constraints. When you say I have my constraints, you can't say that, okay, I have only 5 people and I am bootstrapped, they're not interested. Your constraints are maybe the scale. I can deliver this to you only say uh, I need about 3 months time to deliver this, or I can not do, say, the entire digital transformation for you, maybe, but I can begin with one, say, one function and show you the result, and I'll keep building onto it. This way, you invoke empathy. Again, it's not sympathy. They know that what you're doing. You, with your story, with the way you present your service or product, the kind of impact that you can show. At this point, you may not have logos, but can you show the proof of concept? Can you show that how your product is actually actionable, that it can create an impact? Can Do you have a proof point? Have you done a POC? If you can show that impact, you will be able to show you will be able to invoke empathy. People would want to believe in you, would like to see you succeed, right? And all this happens when you have actually got the attention, when you have actually shown that you are a genuinely innovative person who can bring in the the product or service which is needed at that point in time and works for the customer. You can also be a problem solver. Again, this works with mid-sized, smaller companies who who are trying to get their foot into a domain where all the big bosses are there. Now, again, what is it that why would they consider you? So, say maybe if you are small, you can get into the nooks and cranny of the organization where maybe a big guy cannot. So, what is the context that you come in? The context will come when you have researched about your customer, when you know what is it that they have, what is it that they don't, and where's the opportunity, and talk about this is where I can come in. Here's the opportunity that for you and not for me, not as a problem solver. This is an opportunity that you have to experience my product or service and fill the gap that you may or may not have actually seen that exists. There's a potential, there's an impact that you can get, and you are able to therefore get the return on investment, maybe not immediately, maybe in a point of time again, but you have to be clear. You cannot over promise and under deliver. You are a problem solver, you are identifying the problem, something that is explicit or maybe not clearly defined for the customer, but you are the one who has found that spot and say, here is a gap that I can fill for you. Let me stop here and see if there are any questions. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? I don't see there are questions. Okay, so I have some cheat, some things that I want to leave you with. I can show you those, the cheat sheet that I have, something that you can go home with. You have it here. Very simple thing. It's important that we are clear. We don't overcomplicate things for people, right? Uh, there's no, we can't put the burden of understanding us on our audience. The easier we make it for our audience, the the chances are that I'm able to build a very strong engagement. It's important to not flaunt. It's important to not go with an air of superiority. That doesn't mean that you go, without really preparing yourself, but make it simple, make it easy for consumption. You have to be very, very genuine. Sometimes you talk about uh, what brought you here. You are genuinely creating a solution to a problem that you have seen. You talk about the barriers you have overcome to create that product. But again, this is not a sob story. This is not that, something that it's not about creating, no, the kind of say, okay, this guy has been going through a tough time, therefore I need to support him. Not That's not the kind of uh, emotion that you want to talk. When you talk about your personal stories of struggles and barriers, what you are showing that I have genuinely intended to create a product and service that you can use, and therefore they see that, okay, this is a guy who comes with intent, who comes with the passion, who comes with the real intent of solving my problem. And this is where you talk about, like, what purpose, what purpose brings you there. Again, the purpose is not that your product is the greatest product that was ever built on the earth. It is because your product can solve a problem. Always open for be open for any kind of feedback, good, bad, because there's nothing called a bad feedback. Every feedback makes you better. Everything is enriching, and it's possible. It's always important to get different and diverse point of view. So therefore, be open, and some amount of research, some amount of understanding of your audience will be able to help you understand what kind of possible questions, what kind of possible perspective that they can come with. So therefore, if you have done your homework, you will be able to preempt certain questions, but then be prepared to be surprised as well. There might be questions or perspectives coming that you may not have answers at that point in time, but that's a homework that you come back with, and look at how can you then uh, provide those answers, or kind of build that into your story. So when you're talking about story and presenting your story, this is what you need to look at. Sometimes you take a role of a mentor, in the sense that you are educating your audience. They may not know about the pain they, as I said, explicit pain or implicit pain. They may or may not know that they need such kind of solution. So it's important that you translate the idea into an action and make it easier for the audience to accept what you're bringing on table. So this is a cheat sheet. You have to be simple, genuine, purposeful, open, and sometimes be able to educate your audience. So that's what I have right now. Any questions, I'll be happy to take. Can I have a copy of the cheat sheet in my email? I'm sure we'll be sharing this with you shortly. The We'll be sharing this shortly with you. You'll have this recording, and I think you'll be getting an email with it. Anyone else has any questions? Any thoughts? Can we? Okay. Okay. So while though we have no questions, I would like to leave you with some experiences that I have had when we are going to an audit with a call customer. Since we were when we were new in the blog, what they would like to know from us is, can we really deliver, right? And when you're new, this is the first question that comes into the mind of the audience that you visit. How do I solve that? What kind of story do I tell there that my customer would look at me? The customer would look at me when I bring in my experience, expertise, which therefore informs that, okay, I can there I can deliver on what I am doing. So my story that I'm presenting there, it could be in a form of a presentation, it could be in form of my brochure, it could be any other stuff that I'm bringing on table. Would talk about my experience, because I am. This is a leader-led story again, because I'm bringing in my experience, my expertise, and putting my say my goodwill on the table and saying, hey, I've done it so far, and therefore I'm the best person to talk about it at this point in time. So therefore I am able to create some sort of say connect, because they are then able to say, okay, this is experience, therefore this person is possibly a person I want to talk to. In a leader led story, when you start your business, it is sometimes your face that your client trust. Over a period of time, you start putting your product and service in front and let people experience that. At that time, you step a couple of steps backward and let your product and service do talking, and therefore your story becomes a product and service led story, a solution led story, what you are solving for the customer. Thereafter, sometimes you come across as a problem solver. You have understood from your customers that a particular segment, a particular target group may have some kind of a problem that you have come across in your earlier experiences, and therefore you are able to identify, and therefore you are able to solve the problem. That's your problem solver story. You can also be someone who's an underdog. Sometimes you compete with the big guys who have been, say, there for a long time. But what you bring on table is your agility, your innovativeness, sometimes also the price point. And that's when people start looking at the underdog and say, hey, this is the guy who can perform. So that's the different kind of stories we talked about. I recap again: structure, 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 focus on messaging, build a narrative, leave scope for questions, and drive action. I think that's all I have today. I'd be happy to hear from you. You have our details with you. You can drop me a message on my LinkedIn, and we will shortly be sharing the discussion we had with you on your email. If there are no other questions, I'll take your leave. Have a good evening.